What happens when a teacher's cruelty unleashes a chain of events that transforms an entire school forever? The fluorescent lights hummed overhead as Professor Martinez adjusted his wire-rimmed glasses, surveying his advanced biology class with the air of someone who believed he held the keys to every student's future. His eyes landed on the girl in the third row, Maya Rodriguez, who sat quietly with a worn textbook and a pencil that had been sharpened down to a stub. "Class, let's discuss our career aspiration essays," Professor Martinez announced, his voice carrying that particular tone teachers use when they're about to make an example of someone. He held up Maya's paper like evidence in a courtroom. "Miss Rodriguez here has written about becoming a pediatric surgeon. How ambitious." A few students shifted uncomfortably in their seats. "Tell me, Maya," he continued, his voice dripping with condescension, "does your father plan to clean the operating rooms while you perform heart surgery on children?" The question hung in the air like poison. The classroom erupted in nervous laughter. Maya's cheeks burned, but she didn't look away. She met Professor Martinez's gaze with quiet dignity, her dark eyes steady and unwavering. She said nothing, not because she couldn't, but because she had learned that sometimes silence speaks louder than words. What nobody in that classroom knew was that Maya's father, Antonio Rodriguez, had been replacing light bulbs in the hallway just outside. He had heard every word, every cruel syllable. And in that moment, something shifted in the universe. That evening, Antonio made a phone call he hadn't made in 15 years. His fingers trembled as he dialed a number buried deep in his contacts. A number that connected him to a world he had left behind. "Hello, Marcus," he said quietly. "It's time." The morning everything changed dawn broke over Lincoln Heights Academy, but it wasn't like any other morning. Black vehicles with tinted windows lined the school's entrance before the first bell rang. Men and women in professional attire stepped out, their movements precise and purposeful. They wore no visible badges, but their presence commanded immediate attention. Students pressed their faces against classroom windows, whispering theories. Teachers gathered in nervous clusters. The principal, Mrs. Patterson, hurried down the corridor, her heels clicking rapidly against the polished floor. The intercom crackled to life. "All faculty members report to the main auditorium immediately." "This is not a drill." Professor Martinez straightened his tie, trying to mask his confusion behind his usual arrogant smirk. "Probably some new district policy," he muttered to a colleague. But deep down, something felt different. Something felt final. Inside the auditorium, the lights were dimmed. A group of professionally dressed individuals stood near the stage. No introductions, no small talk, just quiet authority that filled the room like electricity before a storm. The principal stepped to the microphone, her voice unsteady. "Good morning, staff. Please remain seated. We have distinguished guests who have requested this meeting." The words sent a chill through every person in that room. Then the doors opened again. A man in his early 50s entered, wearing an impeccably tailored charcoal suit. His presence commanded immediate silence, not through intimidation, but through the kind of natural authority that comes from years of wielding real power. Behind him walked Antonio Rodriguez, but this wasn't the custodian the teachers knew. He wore a navy blazer, carried a leather briefcase, and walked with the confidence of someone stepping back into their true identity. Maya followed close behind, dressed in a crisp white blouse and navy skirt. But the biggest change wasn't in her clothes, it was in her posture. Gone was the shrinking Violet from yesterday's classroom. In her place stood a young woman with steel in her spine and fire in her eyes. The man in the charcoal suit approached the microphone. "Good morning. My name is Marcus Wellington, Executive Director of the Rodriguez Foundation for Educational Excellence. Yesterday, a faculty member at this institution chose to humiliate a student based on her family's economic circumstances. Today, we address that choice." The silence that followed was deafening. He continued, his voice calm but carrying the weight of absolute authority. Antonio Rodriguez is not merely a custodian. He is my business partner and the founder of our foundation. Over the past decade, he has personally funded scholarships worth over $2 million. His daughter, Maya Rodriguez, is the recipient of our National Young Innovators Award and has been accepted to 7 prestigious universities with full scholarships. Gasps echoed through the auditorium. Some teachers looked stunned. Others suddenly found their shoes very interesting to stare at. Professor Martinez felt his mouth go dry. This school, Marcus continued, has been selected for a complete educational transformation. New technology, expanded programs, and significant financial investment. However, before we invest in any institution, we evaluate its culture, its values, and most importantly, its treatment of every student. Every word was a hammer blow to Professor Martinez's world. Would the faculty member involved in yesterday's incident please stand? The auditorium fell silent, except for the sound of Professor Martinez's chair scraping against the floor as he reluctantly rose. His legs felt like they were made of lead. State your name for the record. Professor Robert Martinez. His voice cracked slightly. Marcus nodded once. Thank you, Professor Martinez. Our investigation team reviewed security footage from your classroom. Your exact words to Maya Rodriguez were, "Children of custodians should focus on realistic goals, not fantasy careers." Is that accurate? The shame hit him like a physical blow. Professor Martinez opened his mouth, but no words came. In the third row, Maya stood with quiet dignity beside her father. No anger in her expression. No bitterness. Just the kind of strength that emerges from years of persevering through other people's small minds. Marcus turned to address the full faculty. The Rodriguez Foundation doesn't just fund schools. We transform them. We ensure that every child, regardless of their background, receives respect, encouragement, and opportunity. We have zero tolerance for educators who confuse their personal biases with professional judgment. He paused, letting the words sink in. Effective immediately, Professor Martinez is suspended pending a full review. An interim educator will take over his classes. The room erupted. Some teachers gasped. Others clapped quietly, barely containing their relief. A few looked away, perhaps wondering about their own past moments of judgment. Maya stepped forward and approached the microphone. Her voice was clear and steady. I never wanted revenge. I just wanted to learn and grow without being told my dreams were too big for my circumstances. Thank you for showing me that a person's worth isn't determined by their parents' job title. It's determined by their character, their effort, and their willingness to lift others up instead of tearing them down. The applause that followed wasn't polite. It was thunderous. The deeper truth, but this story was just beginning. The next morning, Lincoln Heights Academy buzzed with an energy unlike anything in its history. News vans lined the street. The Rodriguez Foundation had set up resource stations throughout the campus, distributing new tablets, books, and information about scholarship opportunities. But the biggest surprise came during the special assembly. Maya stood on the stage, no longer the quiet girl in the back row. She looked out at her classmates, some who had whispered about her, others who had simply watched in silence when she was humiliated. My father taught me that dignity isn't something others can give you or take away, she began. It's something you carry within yourself. When Professor Martinez tried to make me feel small, I chose not to shrink. When he laughed at my dreams, I chose to dream bigger. The auditorium was completely silent. But here's what I learned this week, she continued, her voice growing stronger. Sometimes staying silent isn't about being weak. It's about having faith that the truth will eventually surface. And when it does, it changes everything. Behind the stage, Antonio Rodriguez watched his daughter with tears in his eyes. Marcus Wellington stood beside him. She's remarkable, Marcus said quietly. She gets that from her mother, Antonio whispered, his voice thick with emotion. The final revelation just when everyone thought the story had reached its conclusion. One more twist emerged. As the assembly concluded and students began filing out, a woman in a navy suit approached Maya. She carried an official-looking folder and a badge that read, Department of Education, Special Investigations. Miss Rodriguez, I'm Agent Sarah Mitchell. I need to speak with you about your mother. Maya's eyes widened. Her mother had passed away when she was 12, and her father rarely spoke about her. Agent Mitchell opened the folder, revealing photographs and documents. Your mother, Dr. Isabella Rodriguez, wasn't just a teacher. She was an undercover investigator for our department, working to expose corruption in educational systems. She spent years documenting how certain schools systematically discouraged students from low-income families. Antonio Rodriguez's face went pale. She never told me the full extent of her work. She couldn't, Agent Mitchell explained, but before she passed, she submitted a final report. In it, she specifically mentioned the school and recommended it for intervention if her daughter ever faced discrimination here. Maya stared at the documents, seeing her mother's handwriting in the margins. Notes about unfair grading practices, biased college counseling, and teachers who steered certain students away from advanced courses. Your mother's investigation is the reason the Rodriguez Foundation was able to move so quickly, Marcus explained. She documented everything. Every instance of bias, every missed opportunity, every student whose potential was dismissed. Maya felt her knees grow weak. She was fighting for kids like me even before I was born. She was fighting for all students, Agent Mitchell corrected gently. But especially for those who reminded her of herself. Brilliant young people told their dreams were too big for their circumstances. Antonio Rodriguez wiped his eyes. She always said Maya's success would be her greatest victory. I just never understood how deep that went. The legacy continues 6 months later. Lincoln Heights Academy was unrecognizable. The hallways buzzed with energy from new science laboratories, art studios, and college preparation programs. The Rodriguez Foundation Scholarship Program had expanded to serve students across the entire district. Most importantly, the culture had shifted. Teachers now received annual training on unconscious bias and the importance of nurturing every student's potential. Maya Rodriguez became the first student body president in the school's history to be elected unanimously. Her platform was simple. Every student deserves to dream big and receive the support to make those dreams reality. Professor Martinez. He completed a comprehensive professional development program and now teaches at a community college, where he's known for his patience and encouragement, especially with non-traditional students. On graduation day, Maya stood as valedictorian, looking out at her classmates and their families. Her father sat in the front row, wearing his finest suit, beaming with pride. They say we should dream within our means. She began her speech. But I say we should dream beyond our circumstances, work beyond our comfort zones, and lift others beyond the limitations that small minds try to place on big hearts. The standing ovation lasted 5 minutes, but the most powerful moment came next. Maya pulled out a folded piece of paper, a letter her mother had written years earlier, discovered among her investigation files. She read aloud, "To my future daughter, if you're reading this, it means you've encountered someone who tried to make you feel small because of where you come from. Remember this. Your potential isn't limited by other people's expectations. You are capable of extraordinary things, not despite your background, but because of the strength it has given you. Dream fearlessly, work relentlessly, and never let anyone convince you that your goals are too big for your reality. The world needs what you have to offer." There wasn't a dry eye in the auditorium. As Maya walked across the stage to receive her diploma, she carried with her not just her own dreams, but the dreams of every student who had ever been told they weren't good enough, smart enough, or worthy enough to reach for something extraordinary. The custodian's daughter had become something far more powerful. She had become proof that potential recognizes no social boundaries, that dignity cannot be destroyed by small minds, and that sometimes the most profound changes begin with a single moment of quiet courage. Because in the end, Maya Rodriguez was never just a custodian's daughter. She was a legacy in the making. 5 years later, Dr. Maya Rodriguez, now in her second year of medical school, established the Dream Beyond Foundation, providing mentorship and resources to students facing educational discrimination. The foundation's motto, inscribed on every scholarship certificate, reads simply, "Your circumstances are your starting point, not your destination." And in a small frame on her desk sits a photo of her parents, along with a simple custodial badge. A reminder that the most important work is often done by those who labor quietly, dream persistently, and love unconditionally. The end is just the beginning. If you enjoyed the story, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and become a part of our Everyday Life Stories community. Where are you watching from? Drop a comment below. We love hearing from our amazing viewers around the world.